I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife, Emily, for about 7 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty quickly, and I really thought we had something solid. She's smart, ambitious, and attractive. Basically everything I ever wanted in a partner. We moved in together a few years ago, and things seemed smooth, at least on the surface. We had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. Lately, though, I started noticing strange things. Emily was acting more distant, tense even. She'd go out with friends and come back looking like she'd just run a marathon, red in the face, out of breath, hurried to shower, and then act like everything was fine. I'd ask her about her day, and she'd brush me off with some bullshit excuse. "Work's stressful," she'd say, or "I just needed some fresh air." The worst part was her phone. She kept it glued to her hand, and whenever I'd try to see what she was texting, she'd hide it. Not outright hide, but quick enough to make me suspicious. Then came the weirdest thing. I noticed she kept disappearing late at night, and her phone activity spiked at odd hours. I found her deleting messages, which was suspicious enough, but what really got me was how she kept changing her password on her phone. Every few days, it seemed like. I didn't want to be that guy who checks her stuff, but I felt like I was losing my mind. I was trying to brush it off for a while, telling myself that maybe I was just paranoid. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. One day, I was in the kitchen making coffee, and I glanced over at her laptop while she was in the bathroom. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy, but I was curious. Maybe I was hoping I'd find something innocent, and I'd finally get peace of mind. Instead, I saw a series of messages between her and some guy. Something about meeting up, late nights, and plans that sounded more than just friends. The messages were flirty, a little too personal, and definitely not something a married woman should be involved in. I froze. My stomach sank. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was reading, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. When she came back from the bathroom, I could see the change in her face. She knew I'd seen it. The way she looked at me, defensive, annoyed, I knew I'd hit a nerve. I wanted to ask her straight up, but I also felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. This wasn't just a little flirtation, this was betrayal. It felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I didn't say anything right then. I just closed her laptop and walked out of the room, trying to keep it together, but inside I was furious, confused, and heartbroken. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore what I'd just seen. After I saw those messages, I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing, replaying everything I'd discovered. I kept asking myself how long this had been going on, whether I'd missed signs earlier, whether I was just too blind to see it. I was furious at her, obviously, but also hurt in a way that I'd never experienced before. How could she do this to me, to us? I thought we had a good thing, or at least that's what I believed. Turns out I was living with a different person all along. The next day, I decided I couldn't just ignore it. I needed to confront her. I waited until she got home from work, trying to keep my emotions in check. When she came in, I just looked at her, my heart pounding. I didn't bother with small talk. I just asked, "Who is Ryan? Tell me the truth." Her face immediately went flush, and she started to lie big time. "It's nothing, Jake. Just some guy from work I was talking to. It's not a big deal, I swear." She brushed it off like I was overreacting, which made me even angrier. If it was nothing, why delete messages? Why hide the phone? Why sneak around? I pressed her harder, and she snapped. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're always suspicious, always accusing me of stuff. Maybe you're just insecure or jealous. I don't have to explain myself to you." That's when I saw the real her, bitchy, defensive, full of lies. She kept insisting it was just some stupid work thing, that she was stressed, that it didn't mean anything, but I knew better. I could see the lie in her eyes, and I felt a cold wave of betrayal wash over me. I told her I wasn't going to stand for her disrespect, that I deserved honesty, and that I wouldn't tolerate cheating. She rolled her eyes, shrugged, and said, "Whatever, Jake, you're overreacting, just relax." But I couldn't relax. That night I stayed up, replaying everything, trying to figure out my next move. Part of me wanted to believe her stupid excuses. Part of me wanted to destroy her, confront her with everything I knew, and rip her apart for what she'd done. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and disappointment. How did I get here? How did I get to the point where I couldn't trust the person I loved? It was like the ground was shifting beneath me, and I had no idea how to hold on to anything anymore. I knew I needed to think carefully about what I wanted, but honestly, I was already hurt so badly that I didn't see a way out that didn't involve some kind of reckoning. Over the next few days, everything felt surreal. I couldn't focus. On work, couldn't sleep, and every time I looked at Emily, I saw a stranger. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was how she kept denying everything, acting like I was just paranoid or jealous. I couldn't believe she was lying so effortlessly, like she thought she could just brush this whole thing under the rug. Meanwhile, I felt like I was walking around with a constant knot in my stomach, trying to keep my cool but failing miserably. The worst part, I knew I had to decide what to do next, and quick. One night I decided to follow her. I know, probably not the most mature move, but it felt like I had no choice. I wanted to see for myself if she was really with Ryan or just screwing with my head. I tracked her through the apps on my phone, and sure enough, she left the house around 10 p.m., heading towards some apartment complex a few blocks away. I parked a few streets down, watching her walk up to a door, and my stomach dropped. I could see her talking to someone, and then they went inside together. It was undeniable. She was cheating, plain and simple. When she finally came home the next morning, she looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. I'd been waiting for her in the living room, my arms crossed, trying to keep my voice steady. I just said, "Who's Ryan, Emily? Don't lie to me. I followed you last night." Her face twisted into a sneer and she rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, you're stalking me now. Grow up, Jake." I felt my blood boil. I told her I'd seen enough, that I knew she'd been lying all along. Her response? She spat out some bullshit about how Ryan was just a guy from her yoga class or some such crap, and it was nothing serious. That she was just bored, that it didn't mean anything, and I was overreacting. I was livid. I knew I deserved better than this, someone who would cheat behind my back, lie to my face, and then blame me for being suspicious. I wanted to scream, to shake her and tell her how much she'd hurt me, but I just stared, trying to process everything. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, and I kept asking myself if I could forgive her, if there was any way back from this. She was still insisting it was just a mistake, that Ryan was just some guy and she'd never do anything like this again. But I knew better. I knew this wasn't going to just disappear. I felt like my entire life had been turned upside down, and honestly, I didn't even know how to start fixing it or if I even should. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with everything I'd uncovered and everything she continued to deny. I felt like I was caught between two worlds, one where I wanted to believe her, to just forget and pretend it never happened, and another, darker part of me that knew I couldn't. The anger was boiling inside, but beneath it was a deep, aching sadness. How could she do this? After all these years, I thought we had trust. I thought she was loyal. Turns out I was dead wrong. The betrayal was eating me alive. I started to think about what I wanted to do, whether I should confront her again, or just cut my losses. I knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. My head was spinning and I felt like I was losing grip on reality. I was furious at her, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner, but more than anything, I was devastated. I'd shared everything with her, my hopes, my fears, my future, and now I realized she'd been sneaking around behind my back. It was like some sick joke I'd been played. The next day I decided I had to do something different. I couldn't just sit around and stew, waiting for her to admit the truth. I started planning. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without proof, so I decided to dig a little deeper. I installed a GPS tracker on her car, nothing malicious, just enough to keep tabs. I also reached out to a friend of mine who's a private investigator. I wanted to know if I was missing anything. In the meantime, I kept my cool, pretending everything was normal, all while gathering evidence. That evening, I followed her again. This time, it was different. I was prepared. I saw her meet Ryan once more, and this time I was close enough to hear snippets of their conversation. They were planning something, maybe a secret. Rendezvous, and the way they looked at each other, I could see the affection, the familiarity. It confirmed everything. This wasn't just a mistake or some fling. It was real and it was ongoing. That moment shattered whatever shred of hope I had left. When she finally turned the corner and headed home, I was waiting outside, my heart pounding. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her and felt the cold certainty settle in. I was done. I knew I had to decide what to do next, but honestly, I didn't want to confront her anymore. I felt numb, like the betrayal had drained all my energy. As I sat alone that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized something important. I deserved someone who wouldn't cheat, who wouldn't lie, who wouldn't make me feel this small. Whether I stayed or left, I had to take control of my own life. It was painful, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The trust was broken, and I had to face the harsh truth. I needed to get out or fight for what I really wanted, which at this point wasn't her. The days that followed were like living in a fog. I spent hours debating whether to stay, whether to fight for her, or just cut everything loose and walk away. Every time I looked at her, I felt a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. It was like she had become a stranger, someone I thought I knew but turned out to be just a liar. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The trust was shattered, and I felt it in every fiber of my being. One night, I finally sat her down. I told her I knew about Ryan. I showed her the evidence I had collected, everything from the texts to the times I followed her. Her face was a mask of contempt, like I was just some inconvenience. She scoffed and said, "You're crazy, Jake. You're overreacting. You're jealous, insecure. I don't know what you want from me." Her words stabbed me hard. I wanted to lash out, to scream at her, but I held it in. Instead, I told her I was done. I said I couldn't keep living in her lies, that I didn't deserve this. Her reaction. She told me I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything, that I was paranoid and controlling. She called me possessive, accused me of spying on her, and then shrugged as if none of this mattered. That moment was the final straw. I realized I wasn't going to get any honesty from her. She wasn't going to change, and she didn't care about the damage she'd done. That night, I made up my mind. I would leave her. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I deserved better, someone who valued honesty, loyalty, and respect. I started packing my things quietly. I stayed up late, thinking about everything I'd lost and everything I still had to lose if I stayed. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I had to get out before I completely lost myself. When I finally told her I was leaving, she was furious, calling me all kinds of names, saying I was overreacting again, accusing me of cheating myself by walking away. But I didn't care. I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken back some control, even if it hurt like hell. As I walked out that door, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. I knew some wounds wouldn't heal anytime soon, but I also knew I'd be better off without her. I've learned a lot from this. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that I don't have to accept being lied to or cheated on. Moving forward, I need to prioritize myself, my happiness. And honestly, I'd advise anyone else in a similar situation. Don't ignore the signs, don't let yourself be manipulated, and never settle for someone who doesn't respect you. It's a shitty situation, but in the end, self-respect has to come first. After I moved out, everything felt like it was falling apart and coming back together at the same time. The house I shared with Emily sits empty now. I drive past it sometimes, just to remind myself of what I lost and what I gained. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster: anger, sadness, relief, and a strange sense of clarity. I've realized that betrayal like this leaves scars, but it also teaches you who you really are and what you deserve. I won't lie. It's been brutal, and there are days when I wonder how I ever trusted her, how I could have been so blind. But then I remember my worth and that I don't have to put up with bullshit from someone who lies and betrays. I've been focusing on myself. I've started going out more, reconnecting with friends, and even exploring new hobbies I'd put on hold for too long. The emotional roller coaster is still ongoing, but I'm learning to accept that some wounds heal slowly. I've also come to terms with the fact that I might never get the closure I want from her. She's still trying to deny everything, still lying, still playing the victim. But I've stopped caring about her version of the story. I know the truth, and that's enough for me. Looking back, I realize that I've grown stronger. I learned to listen to my instincts and to trust myself more. I also learned that sometimes, love isn't enough to keep a relationship afloat. especially when one person is willing to destroy what you built together for a moment of fleeting pleasure. The pain of betrayal is sharp, but it's also a catalyst for change. I'm not the same person I was before, and honestly, I don't want to be. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, it's this: don't ignore the red flags. Don't convince yourself that it's just a phase or that they'll change. Protect yourself, because once trust is broken, it's almost impossible to repair. And if you find yourself in a situation where the betrayal is too deep, don't be afraid to walk away. Your happiness, your peace, and your integrity matter more than staying silent or making excuses. I don't regret what I've been through because it's made me realize my worth. Now, I'm just trying to move forward, better, stronger, and more aware. And I hope anyone else in a bad situation finds the strength to do the same.